Hi there, welcome to the show. This week it's all about how can you create the time in your business to do the things that you want to do. I think it's one of the most heard sayings, we don't have the time. We'd love to do it if only we had the time. We do all these amazing things in our business. So that's the topic of our conversation today. And we're also going to talk about some of the projects we've done and we've experienced and how we've created the time and the efficiencies so that we're working on the business and not just in the business. We're in for a great show, aren't we, Mahmood?
I'm looking forward to it, actually, Joan. I think when we started talking about this topic here in theme, there's a few things that are popping into my head. I'm going to put you on the spot on a couple of these questions there as well. And I think if we've got time, we might even share with the rest of the world about making time, about new projects in the pipeline as well. Shall we have some music?
Yeah, let's rock it out.
Let's rock it out. I love that music. It's brilliant.
It is brilliant, isn't it? It's great. And welcome to the show. We'd love to hear from you as we're going through our content, our stories, our tips, and everything. And just let us know in the comments, what are your thoughts? How do you make time for things, or do you struggle making time? What are some of those projects that you would love to get off the ground, and how you're going about it? And I think that brings us to the first thing, really, doesn't it, Mahmood? I mean, we'll answer all the comments and queries and questions. We'll come back to everybody. But there are so many things, so many opportunities and things we could be doing with our businesses. And the first stage is about prioritizing, isn't it?
Yeah, right, folks. It's interesting. I like the way you start that, Joe, as well, because I think me and you, even though we work in different fields, but we have an overlap here. Even though we come from slightly different backgrounds, I think there's a commonality in there. And I think, but what I think we do agree on is the outlook and the goggles we have to look at the outside world. So you're talking in terms of opportunities as opposed to overwhelm and all the rest of it. I talk in terms of opportunities. I'm very much a glass more half more full than empty. And I think that approach to all these things is certainly here. But yeah, you're right. It's priority, isn't it? There's so much that can go on. Shiny bauble syndrome, I think some people call it. Getting distracted, doing things not necessarily being structured and processed. It's very, very easy to drift off target and end
Mm.
up doing a lot of things but doing nothing at all.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why, getting all of those things down on paper or on into your laptop or wherever you put these things, is a really good thing to do. Just empty your head and then step back and say, okay, which ones of these, really do I feel passionately about? Are they going to create the biggest opportunities, and make the biggest difference to the business? And keep all the others on a list for later. Don't lose them, but focus on doing one thing at a time that's going to really move you forward. Maybe one, two, or three things. It depends on the size of your team. You might have different people working on different things, but just keep it manageable. Is the first thing. But it's about making time. So there are a few things that you've made time for that I hugely admire. I mean, I hugely admire you anyway. And I also admire you for these things. So one of those things is your book. And we talked about your book, didn't we, a few weeks ago,
We did,
that
yeah.
you've just brought out. I Hate Numbers. And that's been something that you've really wanted to do. So that's the first project I'd like to discuss. There's another one coming up. How did you create the time when you are running a really busy business, to get that book out and written and do it so brilliantly with such great content?
Great question, Joe. As always, I would say there's a few things. I think before we look at the specifics of the book itself, because I think for me it applies whether it's the book, whether it's a product you want to get off, whatever it is.
Mm,
There's something I think in the makeup, and it's interesting when we talked about entrepreneurs' mindset last week here. I believe strongly so that there's a certain kernel, there's certain bits of people's makeup. So whether you want to call that a hunger, whether you call that some form of desire, whether you call that self-actualization here, whether you call that self-driven, whether you call it having skin in the game. But there is something in there that goes on that makes business people who move things forward either bloody minded, very sticking to their guns. They work hard. I'm not saying it's the number of hours. And for me, what it was is because once I fixated on that desire to get a book out, because I wanted to do that for a number of reasons here, I wasn't going to let it go. So even though it might have drifted in weeks to actually get it done, that was never going to disappear from my sort of things to do. I think based on sort of personal background, based on business background, based on that hunger that never goes, I think that was probably the primary factors behind actually getting it delivered.
Yeah, and because so many people say, I'm going to write a book or I've got a few books in me and then never get round to it. So, and I agree with you. I think that's the differentiator, isn't it? You've got to really want it in order to find ways around things, push past obstacles, do things even if you might be feeling a bit tired. You've got to really want it to make space for it in a busy business. And that's true for anything. So once you've got the hunger and you decided that that's it, you're after it, how then did you practically, create the time? When did you do the writing? How did you find space in the day? Was it a routine or did you do it as and when? So what was your pattern of working?
Well, I'd like the official line, I suppose I should say, is that every morning when I got up, I spent an hour in the morning. I thought, let me write my book now. The reality was, it wasn't. It was literally some days and weeks would go by, and I've not really addressed the book itself. Some weeks and days would go by, and I think I'd have a burst of energy to review. What did help in the process, by the way, because I started the project about 2 or 3 years ago, was think, okay, instead of rushing into it, think about what you want to do. And then I actually use things like podcasts that I've done before, blogs that I've written before. And I thought there's material there. It may not fit into a book because the podcasts aren't done as this is chapter 1 and 2. And then it was getting that together. I also had the help of some great copywriters and some editors and all the rest of it. So I got a team around me and thinking, do you know what? At some point, if it was just relying on me to get it done, it's going to take forever to do that. So therefore, I need to bring in people to help me. Obviously, I need to get myself involved in doing it as well. So there's a whole combination of things of thinking what the outline. If I wrote the book again, by the way, I'd probably do it in a much more efficient way. I'd probably do it much smoother. But the first time of doing it, it's a combination of getting some good advice, getting some rubbish advice, trying to fit it in the day. So unfortunately, it's not quite the every day you do 500 words, you do it. That idea was brilliant, by the way, but for me, it didn't quite work. It was literally like that roller coaster, but I wasn't
Yeah.
going to lose sight of the fact of getting it across the line.
I wonder how many people who say they do these things every morning. I wonder how many of them actually do. To be real, I think it's maybe they do it a few times a week, but to produce 1,000 words or whatever it is every day. I mean, I've had a go at things like Nanowrimo, which is National. I don't know. I can't remember what it stands for. November Writing Month. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's called NaNoWriMo, and the Rimo is with a W, and you commit to writing so many words a day through the month of November, and you log them on a free website, and so on. And that's really hard, just doing that for a month and being consistent. So I think that's the first thing, is that the ideal scenarios that people lay out can make us feel quite demotivated and wanting, lacking in so many areas, because they're an ideal, and who the heck really sticks to them? The vast majority of people don't and can't. So I love that. I love the honesty of that. I've got a
For you,
book.
Joe, how did you approach your book?
So my book was written. I mean, I had a burst essentially. So it was over
Yeah.
a Christmas holiday, and I was away in Spain, and I really wanted to create something, and I just sat down and wrote it. It's not particularly long, but I just sat down and wrote it. I hardly moved, and got the book written. Fortunately, the weather in Spain in December in that part of Spain wasn't particularly good, so write in the
Distractions.
daytime and go for a few glasses of wine and olives and what have you in the evening. So that burst activity. Having said that, I've just written another short book, the Creative Facilitation Handbook, which isn't published yet. And that's a collection of different blogs, but repurposed, edited, restructured, so that
Was the
it
approach
forms.
different this time around? Or did you have that same focused attention, or did you have to do that while juggling all the different things that you do?
Yeah, I collated everything together, and then it sat there for ages, untouched, about 40,000 words. And then somebody edited it for me and got it down to 18,000. And I edited it and did a really clean edit, and it's down to about 12,000 or something.
Oh, yeah.
But it's down to the real essence. There's no fluff or waffly stuff in there. So yeah, it's about being creative about how you're doing it. It's about repurposing things, and it's doing what you can when you can, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that honesty bit because I think there's a thing. I think I can see this in a lot of other disciplines. I know we don't want to go off the tangent like coaches and all the rest of it. I think
Mm.
when people give advice, they don't give it in contextual about what actually goes on in a business world. And when in a business world, it's like you've got so many demands coming from all over the place, which I think why I'll use the word successful because I think it is the word that fits nicely. You've got to have a certain mental strength. You've got to have a certain mental resilience here that can actually cut the noise out. That at that time when it suits, you can actually just literally not get distracted by all that stuff there as well. But the realities of running a business are, in yes, ideal you can do that. I'm going to sit in Spain while my business runs itself. That's great. That's a great aspiration and ideal to go for. It doesn't always work that way, and I think for most people, it's a combination of things there as well. But I think you're certainly right. You need a process. You need to think about when I say make shortcuts, where you can access things and say, actually, are there things that I could do to make that process smoother? And priority, I think it's a really key thing. I mean, you are a mentally tough cookie, Joe, and without embarrassing you here, you do loads of things here. So I think unless your legs were falling off, you turn up, you do those things. You're mentally strong, mentally tough, and you've got a sense of drive and purpose as well behind you. Do you think that counts for a lot in how you get so much done?
Oh, definitely. And you've got all that drive and you've got all that purpose and mental toughness as well. I think that's why, we connect and work together so well. So right back at you. And I think we need it. It's about this, and actually studies demonstrate this as well. So there's research by a lady called Angela Duckworth, and academic research in the US. And the underpinning factor around whether it's children or adults is grit. It's keeping going with something and finding ways to persevere. Because she actually started out in teaching, and she asked herself, why is it that I've got these really talented children, and they're not doing so well. I've got children who have probably got less natural ability. This is for maths, and they're doing okay. And actually, everybody's capable of learning these fundamental mathematical principles and applying them. It's not that hard. So why isn't everybody doing much better than they are? And why are some people succeeding more than others? And the underpinning factor that she then later on went on to do research for is grit. And actually grit overrides talent. It's no good having talent if you don't have the grit to do something with it. Obviously, grit plus talent is super powerful.
Now, folks, listen, if you're coming along this here, by the way, so I think it's the magic phrase #replay. Let us know you're out there. I mean, do you agree with what me and Joe are saying? Do you think there's anything else that goes into that mix? What are you most proud of? It doesn't have to be a massive thing that you've managed to achieve despite a sort of a very busy sort of workload. We'd love to actually hear that. It's
Yeah,
strange, isn't
and
it? Sorry,
yeah.
Joe, you go. You go.
No, I was going to say, I think it's we'd love to hear, because, and I think a key message for me is that it's better to make some progress than to achieve that progress perfectly. So there's never an ideal time. There are some times where it's definitely not the right time, but there's never an ideal time. So it's about taking every opportunity to move a step towards something as and when you can, and sometimes creating those opportunities. It isn't necessarily about sitting down every morning between 5 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. and churning out a certain amount of words, or spending time on your product development. And we're talking about books here, but this is everything. I mean, it's
Absolutely,
not,
isn't it? Yeah.
books are just an example. And so many people want to write a book, but you've also, I mean, kudos to you as well. You've also grown your YouTube channel, you've got, and you've monetized it as well. And I've got a YouTube channel, and I'm finding that really hard work. I'm enjoying it, and I'm getting there. It's quite slow, but you've done it super fast and super well. So how have you gone about that? Because I'd love to learn some lessons from you.
I think it's one of those things. Have you ever heard that phrase about overnight success, several years in the making? I've
Yeah.
been doing YouTube for the last, it probably shows on some of the earlier videos and probably some of the current ones for a few years now. And for me, it's about establishing patterns of behaviour. So it's establishing habits. So what I've always managed to do, even if the videos themselves haven't been top quality and I've got loads of room for improvement, is to turn up each week, keep doing it, keep pushing it, learning about trying to improve the technique, from the way the tags are done to the filming, the message, honing in on that is. And then you get to that curve, bit of promotion and marketing behind it, and then you get to that curve where it takes up. And it's like everything, when something becomes popular or more popular than it was, more and more people want to have a look at it, saying what's going on here. And then it's like a very, very, very static, slow build up. Sometimes it's like, the views is one man and his dog. And then I did a couple of videos which just resonated very well with people. That went up, more and more people came to see it. And I think for me it's a combination of, obviously there are things you can do like techniques and planning, keyword research, all that sort of technical stuff, but it's as important to keep turning up, keep doing it. You can identify this, Joe. I know when I first started my business many years ago, literally for the first 3 to 5 years, it was like I look at my bank balance and getting quite depressed with it, but I still wanted to persevere. I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to sort of go back to a proper job and all the rest of it. But I think it's that grit, it's that resilience, and I think it's the same for the YouTube. And the fact you turn up and do it, as I said, you can learn better techniques in filming. It's going to come good.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's the same with blogging. I mean, a blog takes a good 6 to 12 months for Google to work out, who it should show
So
it to, and what it's all about, and so on. So, and with business growth, all of those things, product development, it's keeping at it. It's being consistent, isn't it? And it's not an overnight success. I think you're so right about that. Very few things are. They might seem that way, but actually there's probably months, if not years of work that have gone in advance to getting there. It's like sometimes people will say to me, so I do, as you know this, but I do loads of facilitation, and I'll get all sorts of different people from different companies or places in rooms together virtually or in person, and we'll create something together. We'll create a strategy, we'll create a new product or a solution or whatever it is. And people say to me, "Oh, you're like a magician with people in the room in terms of how you get them working together really quickly, and also the innovations that come out of that." And then they go, "Well, I want to do that." And I say, "Well, that's great, go for it." And I'm happy to share knowledge and insight on how to do it. But they think that you can just turn up and do that. And actually what's underpinning that is 30 years of business experience. It's 6.5 years doing a PhD, 5 years doing an MBA, all of these studying full-time whilst working. And it's about going out of my comfort zone and innovating in sectors in which I've had no previous experience, to learn from that and get better, and people think you just turn up and go da-da, and then they haven't got all the knowledge and skills so you've got to put the work in, I think.
100%. I mean, I don't know if you find this as well. There's two or three things. It sounds like a little bit of a rant, but I think it's important to share this. Is that two things? First of all, the phrase, one of the phrases I dislike the most in the English language that people use is that idea, "I wish I could do X," or
Mm.
"I'm going to do this when I get older, like give to charity and do work." And I'm thinking, well, why not do it now? If you want to do
Yeah.
it, do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. There's no mid ground. And within that, if I think about anything that you admire in life, whether it's music, sport, the arts, whatever, anyone you think, I respect that person who's at the top of their game, they haven't got there because they grow, one day they're born with that talent. Talent is great, but it's going consistently, learning, repetition. I think there's a famous expression with Michael Jordan, who when he got to the top of his game, he was saying it's actually all the missed baskets I had, it's all the mess ups that I did that got me to
Yeah.
the top of the tree. It's not,
Yeah.
it's that you want the perfect abs, go to the gym and put the time in.
Absolutely. And You said it really well when you said you can see the progress that you've made on YouTube. That your early videos are probably very different from your later ones, and that's the same with me. And I've still got a long way to go, and just keep learning. But it's about putting the effort in and putting the time in, and being consistent to grow the skills to achieve, and to get the results as well that we want to get in business. Showing up consistently and working at it. And I think that's really important, is to go in with that mindset when we want to make time for something in the business, and
Yeah,
not
100%.
expect to be super awesome and get millions of followers right away, for YouTube right away.
Yeah, look, listen. I mean, I've had loads of times in front of camera. You have as well. You are resilient, but I know, there have been occasions that hasn't gone quite as well as you would like to. You lick your
Yeah.
wounds. You have that little 10, 15 minute
Yeah.
mope. You just get on back on the bike. You get on with it. It's like,
Yeah.
what's the point of letting that overrule your life about a mishap or two? So you do make mess ups. You do make mistakes. You do get things wrong. You do say things. You listen back to it. You think, did I really say that? I would have said it much better. You've got to have a mental toughness that says, okay, let it wash over, reflect on it, feel sorry for yourself, but that's about a small segment of your day, and then just
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah, and I even get to the point where, I might get mildly cross with myself for a moment, but I don't let it ruin my day. I just think, okay, right, not going to do that again. Just learn from it, and move on. Don't even, beat yourself up about it. Just just move on from there. And I think, in terms of how to make time for the things we want to do in business, I sometimes think that the reason we don't make time for some of the things we say we want to do is because we don't really want to do them.
Yeah, we don't
or,
believe in
or
them.
we like the idea of them, but we don't like the effort that we need to put in. So when you're talking about abs there, I like the idea of perfectly, sculpted abs. And as you can see, I'd love to have those, but not enough to go and make that my priority and train that way, as you can tell. So, yeah, it doesn't mean that I'm not capable of doing it. It just means that I don't want it enough, that there are other things that I want more, and that I value more and prioritize more over that. So it's interesting. So I think, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this and you're thinking there's loads of things I'd love to do, I just don't have time, just ask yourself, do you really want to do them, or do you just like the idea of them? And
That's a great point. There was also, I think, another element of that, Joe, is that, sometimes I think people think too much about the outcome, the end
mm,
point there, and they forget the gap in the middle there as well. And I think sometimes when
yeah,
we talk about like little milestones here, so that if you're not a gym bunny, if that's not your thing, great. But if you want to get fitter or whatever, even if you got off and you went, and I know you walk your dog regularly every single day, just if that's not you, just even if you did 5 minutes, that's a progress, that's a milestone, that's something you've achieved.
mm.
So don't always look at having to do the complete journey in one go. Break it down. But I think people are impatient. People don't actually look at things in those times. Do you think planning plays its part?
Yeah, I think planning does, and I also think flexibility does. So it's like having a plan and having your overall direction, and having, something you want to attain. But I also think we've got this like all or nothing. It's like, if I'm going to work on my business plan or my business strategy, I need a good few days where I can do nothing else and have a clear head. Well, that's nice and it's helpful, but you don't need that. You can do a lot in 20-minute bursts, as and when you get 20 minutes free, or create 20 minutes free, and think about the external environment, or in the next 20 minutes, think about what competitors are doing and do a bit of research on that. 20 minutes, pick up the phone and talk to a couple of customers or potential customers, and, find out what they're looking for in the future, and where they're heading. So it's not all or nothing. You don't need the perfect conditions. It's about carving out, I think, small chunks of time, and being really smart and really focused with those chunks of time, mini sprints, 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there. And it all adds up, and it all creates momentum and progress.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating conversation here, and I think it's like everything else. If we had a few more hours, it'd be great. There's so much more to talk about. I also think there's an idea about get an idea of scale and achievability as well. So, is it acceptable? Is it realistic for you? Because I think if you are going to set lots of good ambitions for yourself, if you want to achieve a lot in your business, by nature, because time is quite a finite thing, there's going to be some sacrifices involved. So what you're going to think is what gives. You can have a good relaxing lifestyle, you can have your friends, your family, brilliant. But if you want to achieve a lot, where's the give? What's going to be sacrificed? What are you not going to do now, because you're doing
Yeah,
something else there? And I think you've got to make that clear decision in your mind. If you want to have a lifestyle business, which I think is brilliant, if that's how you want to run things, then you've got to make sure that within that lifestyle business, there's only a certain amount that's realistically achievable. If you've
yeah.
got a different ambition for your business, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I mentioned this before. I did my PhD over in my late 40s, and it took me 6 years. And I was working more than full time and running my own business at the same time as doing the research and doing all the writing and everything, and part time. And I didn't, do so many hours a week on it. Like you with your book, I do what I could when I could, and I might not touch it for a couple of weeks, and then have a really good burst on it one weekend or one evening or one day, whatever. Um, but throughout that period of doing the PhD, that was my hobby, if you like. You know, and in fact, when I finished the PhD, John, my wonderful husband, said to me, "What would you like for Christmas?" Because I handed it in just before something like Christmas Eve or something ridiculous like that. And which it's a bit earlier than that. And I said, I just want to paint and draw and do something really creative. I'd never ever asked for anything like that before, and I started doing mixed media art, and that's been a hobby ever since. um, but it's about making choices, because whatever it is we want to do in life, there are never going to be enough hours in the day to do everything. We could travel the world and go to all sorts of amazing places, and even if we traveled every single day of our lives, we would never get to all the individual places we'd love to visit. And life's about choices, isn't it? I'm going to do this right now, and then I'm going to choose to do that, and enjoy the things that we do.
I'm curious, Joe, because I'm listening. Coming from a teaching background myself here, I think studying while working is an incredible achievement. I
Mm,
think John's a great bloke, by the way, but I think it's also tougher for women because they tend to have more involvement in running the house as a general statement.
yeah.
40 is not a normal age for people to undertake something as demanding as a PhD. I would imagine it would have been very easy to say, do you know what, especially winter time or summertime when people enjoy themselves, sod this for a game of soldier, I don't want to do this. So what's the thing that kept you going, getting through all that? Because I think you carried that over to your business life as well.
Yeah, I think so. I imagine the end result. So I imagine the celebration that I'm going to have with my family at the degree ceremony, at the graduation ceremony. I imagine having the PhD printed, but I think it's important to enjoy the journey. And it was
Mm.
really tough. There were a couple of times because it was quite an advanced statistical PhD, and I found that really challenging. But I wanted to do it to stretch myself, But there's times where I'm thinking, can I actually do this? Am I up for it? And that's the whole point. That was why I wanted to do it. And but you keep going, and it's enjoying the process and enjoying the stretch, enjoying the challenge, not just being using the outcome to move you forward, or your intended outcome to move you forward, but actually enjoying the process. You know,
Yeah, I think
uh,
that's right. Because otherwise, it just becomes a
yeah,
chore, doesn't it, for an
yeah.
outcome?
Yeah, and life's too short not to enjoy the choices that we make wherever possible. So I think the things we choose to make time to do to take our business forward, or grow the business. So at the moment I'm working, as I'm working on an export strategy, and that feels like something really big above. So I export a bit already, but I want to export still more, and it feels really big on top of everything else. But it's exciting. I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, and yes, it's going to challenge me, and all of those things. But how exciting! How much am I going to learn and find out? It's going to be amazing.
So what's your one big tip here as we come towards the conclusion of this half an hour? What's the one tip you'd give people that if they want to achieve more, if you had to isolate it down to one, I'd maybe give you two. What would you select?
Find what really matters, find what makes the difference, and enjoy the journey so much that you'll stick at it. What about you?
I think it would be to get rid of that clouded, woolly thinking that says, I wish I could. So,
Mm,
without being too expressive at this time of night, make a decision. Don't, just middle ground is pointless. It's either do it or don't do it. And to me,
Yeah.
it is relatively black and white. And just get it done. Just move it. Even if
Yeah.
you make one step forward, it's better than neutral.
Is it the Star Wars? I'm trying to think. Is it do or can do or do or not do? There is no try or something. I don't know. There's something Star Warsy in
It
there
sounds like it
somewhere.
should be a Star Wars thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, and and we show up and make time. Life throws its little obstacles in from time to time, but we've been consistently doing this for 2 years now, haven't we?
Okay, the time and to be fair, actually, there have been times. Very rarely, I'm so glad when I don't think about the show. I think, oh, that's going to be a lot to do. But I love to do the show, and that in itself is the thing that drives us to go forward. We've got some good announcements to make, folks, by the way, over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we're working on. We're actually taking our own advice here, and about how to get things done. So we've got some good stuff to share next week. And I think in good old Star Wars language, from my point of view, we've enjoyed your company. Any comments, put it in #replay, and may the force be with you, as they would say in Star Wars.
Yes, I was going to say live long and prosper. That's the wrong show, but
Which one
do
is
that
that then?
anyway. I think that's Star Trek, isn't it? Yeah, we'll get corrected on all of these things, I'm sure. So it's been great. Thank you very much for your company, everyone, for watching and listening. And yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Mahmood. Love the tips on
No problem.
YouTube.
And as Robin Williams said when he was here, as Mork and Mindy, Nanu Nanu.
No, no, no.